Hi, I'm Scot McPhie. The film started probably about 4 years ago, back in 1999. At that stage I'd only written plays and had plays put on before, and I decided I wanted to write something. It was going to be a play at this stage. I wanted to write something about themes that were important to me at the time, or probably the most important thing to me at the time, and that was really, what is God? Is there a God? What's more important, your beliefs or how you interact with others? And then I think it's really the main theme of the film. What's more important, being true to your own beliefs or being true to a friendship? And if you can't treat other people decently, then what are your beliefs, or what's the value of them? So I have got a strong interest in Indigenous cultures and really the colonial period of history, particularly Australian history. And originally I was going to write this as set probably the late 1800s with an Aboriginal white Australia kind of context. But from having done that with another play just a year or so previous to when I wanted to do this, I found out that getting specific, contextually accurate information about certain Aboriginal cultures is very hard, because most of them don't exist in their traditional state anymore. A lot of the languages don't exist. And where they did actually exist was a long way away from where I was living anyway, and so actually researching it and doing it accurately would have been difficult for me. So that's when I decided, well actually no, I didn't decide. I had used to work at the Queensland Museum, and there's a display there all about Melanesia now, which most people know is just, I suppose, the Pacific New Guinea region just off the northeast of Australia. Now, New Guinea used to be administered by Australia and became a separate country in 1975, so I've always known a little bit about it, and this display really had, a lot more detail about it. And it was while I was actually working there and just looking through this display, there used to be a documentary that would run there for about half an hour or so, and I was looking at one of the cultures in the Gulf route, the Gulf of Papua region, the Gugadala people, I think it was, from memory, I can't remember, but this documentary happened in the 70s, and it was about an anthropologist who tried to get them to revive their traditional culture, and it was mainly about a clash between the people who wanted to do that and the missionaries who'd been there for quite a while and didn't want them to do that. And anyway, in this documentary there was an interview with one of the missionaries there now, and he said, well, with this revival of the traditional culture, a lot of the people have had to decide what's true. Should they follow these traditional beliefs, or should they follow what's in the Bible? And this man said, we're not saying this is God's word, God's saying it. And to my way of thinking, as soon as you say it, it's actually something that you believe. It's coming from you, it's not coming from anything else, because you take it on and you believe it, and then you say it. And hearing this man say something which resonated to me in terms of what I was thinking about thematically at the time, and also some of the practical problems of shooting it in various Aboriginal cultures, made me think about shooting it up in New Guinea. And this was, I guess, towards the end of 99, or maybe midway through 99. I had got married around about that period, and we also went overseas. It was the first time I'd been away. And I started writing it while we were travelling. I started writing it as a play, which I've got here somewhere. Hang on. This was a notebook that I had, and it's going to be a fairly long-winded play, but I guess what I had been doing at the time, I was starting to write plays that were more episodic and a bit more filmic. So if you do things with a minimalist, set and so on, and even to the point of, because it had a large casting, getting a large New Guinea cast just for, like a 2-3 week theatre run would have been hard. Even the point of having people not wearing culturally specific outfits, and even if the actors were all white, it would emphasise the point of everyone's the same. So that would have got around some of the practical problems of staging it as a play, but also emphasised some of the thematic points I was trying to get across. But anyway, after we came back from overseas, that just gave me a real shot in the arm, and a lot more, I suppose I saw outside the little box I was in, and I decided, well, I'll do it as a film, because I've always wanted to make films, and I guess I just had the confidence getting out of my day-to-day life. It kind of gave me a bit of a fresh perspective. So that's when I decided I'd do it as a film, and at that stage we were expecting a baby in about a month, and we were living in a flat underneath a friend's house, and we didn't really have anything, and I had my computer, I didn't have any filmmaking gear, and the computer, even as it was, I did end up starting to edit on it, but that needed a lot of work. So really I just had the desire at that stage, and with our daughter arriving probably about 2-3 weeks after we got back, the next year was spent dealing with that and writing the script. The script went through 2 stages. The first draft was very technical, very thematic, wasn't very emotional, which is what I tried to rework into the second draft, which is what we then went and filmed with. There probably could have been more of that done too anyway, but so the first year was just tied up with the writing, and I was starting to do some of the preliminary investigations. We started scouting for locations. We went up initially to a farm up in the Border Ranges, which was hired out as a holiday farm, and it was satisfactory, I suppose, but it was very bleak. It did actually look like New Guinea. It was funny. We in the holiday house that was there was a family there when we just came in to have a look, and the guy said, "Oh, you're making a film in New Guinea. I have a penis cord if you want to borrow it." It's not nice, alright. He lived in New Guinea. It's funny that's something which I found a lot of people in Brisbane and Queensland have had experience living in New Guinea, and likewise there's a lot of New Guineans in Queensland. So that also helped a lot when it came to the casting and getting some information and so on. So anyway, that place, it was kind of okay, but they actually wanted to charge us a rate for staying there as if we were staying on a holiday. So the final property which we ended up using for a lot of the external shots was also in the Border Ranges, and it was a dairy farm which was owned by some friends of a friend, and we were able to camp there and film there for free, which was good. So, apart from getting the script done, it was mainly research. I read a few books on Papua New Guinean history. There's an excellent bookend documentary called First Contact. This is another thing which had made me think about setting it up there, is all of the Highlanders weren't discovered by the outside world to the 1930s, and the Lay brothers who went up there actually took, I think it was 16mm cameras with them. There's actual film of some of these Highland people seeing white men for the very first time ever. And this is something which, we normally associate with being in the 1800s or earlier, and here it was almost on our doorstep in the 1930s, and I found that very interesting. So I was doing a lot of research, and also research into the legal setup, because I knew I was going to have a court case. I had appeared in a production of The Crucible probably 2 or 3 years previous to writing this, and I really liked the idea of the way it works is kind of what I was trying to do here. If you want to make a thematic point in a script, or if you want it to mainly be about a thematic point, it's good if you can find a actual you need to have practical ramifications from that thematic point, and have it somehow weighed up through something like a court case, or someone having to decide about practical things just based on the thematic ideas. Otherwise it's just a bunch of people sitting around talking. It doesn't have too much practical weight to it, I guess. And so I decided, well, I'd do this in here. I'd have a court case deciding whether or not this man should be killed or not. And so I also did a fair bit of research on the legal setup, and I found that when New Guinea was administered, or Papua and New Guinea, the separate colonies back in the 30s, when they were administered by Australia, the criminal code of Queensland, the state where I lived, was actually the criminal code that was used there. So I was able to get the exact specific law which was forced upon these people, I suppose, and use that in the court case. Another important bit of research was finding that, unless I actually went to New Guinea, getting the context, or like the actual language and so on, was going to be very difficult. So I did a lot of research I decided to set it mainly in the northeastern Highlands area, where I found there was a lot of source material, mainly because that's where the Lays kind of went through, and for other reasons I could get more information from there. So I guess I bent the truth a bit in that it's set in 1938. The people there would have had contact for about 5 or 6 years. The use of English would not have been nearly as widely spread, or as, wouldn't have been as well known as I depicted it in the film. That's taking a bit of artistic license. If it was done really accurately, then it would have had to have been an interpreter character, or subtitles, and my character would have had to have known the language or something, and that would have been a bit difficult, but so I decided to, I guess, take that bit of license. And the other, just while I'm on this kind of topic, the other historically inaccurate bit would have been the Supreme Court. I don't think ever sat up in the Highlands. It would have sat down in Rabaul, which is where the administration was, so that's also taking a bit of license, but I think that's okay as long as people know it. Now the other interesting thing about being accurate in terms of the traditional cultures was I had invented this god Ilbu. I wanted to look at the thing how Christian people say, well, the Spirit of Jesus can come in them and lead them to do these things, and or good things or whatever. And to me, that's all in their mind. It's their belief, and yet they would accept that as being a fact. But if someone in a traditional culture said the same thing about one of their gods, I'd say no, that's just rubbish. But to me, it's essentially the same thing. And through Talapo saying that Ilbu comes in him, I'm trying to mirror that kind of thing with Christian and other kind of religious thinking. But I don't want to misrepresent the traditional, the spiritual beliefs of these people. And there's so many different cultures up in the Highlands and so many different beliefs. But I did do one research. There was I read one book. It was written by an anthropologist, and it was just an overview of the not just the spiritual beliefs but the lifestyles, everything, I guess, from an anthropological point of view of the traditional way of life in the Highlands. And it was actually rare that there were gods that had a moral role, as I've made Ilbu out to be. So it is accurate, but it is rare that wasn't what most of the gods did. But in this particular case, that's the kind of thing I was wanting to look at. And when I came to casting the film, Justin Arlu, who played Talapo, he actually asked me about that, and I was able to say, well, it was rare, but in these cases, blah blah blah. So that was good, and that was an important thing to get right. I think if there was absolutely no example of that whatsoever, then I would have had to have a good long think about this, because I probably wouldn't have done it, or certainly wouldn't have done it in the way I did. So the other thing which I was doing at this stage was also researching as to how I was going to film it, and was it going to be on film or video and so on. And I think I chose Super 8 partly because I'm probably a bit of a romantic, I guess. But I also asked a lot of cinematographers, and people who were probably in their 40s and maybe a bit older, they said it was a great idea. If I did it really well, I'd get a really good result. People who were young and basically had no experience of it, I kind of decided didn't really know what they're talking about. So they just sort of looked like crappy home movies. And so the decision to shoot it on Super 8 turned out to be a very expensive one. But I think the actual texture and the look of the film suits the period a lot better than if I'd done it on video. I think if I'd done it on video, it would have been a lot better in some ways, because we would have been able to see stuff straight back after we did it and so on. But I still think overall it was better to have done it on film, and it certainly is. I think one day digital video will be as good as film. I don't think it's there yet, and I hope to do more stuff on film. So doing this on film was an excellent learning experience, and I'd much rather going to shooting something on 16mm, having done this, than doing something on digital video. So I started to research what kind of camera to get, where to get the film telecine, where I had to get the film processed, which was in Switzerland, which cost an arm and a leg because I sent it over by FedEx. The camera I decided to get was the Beaulieu 408 ZM2. There's a few cameras which are meant to be the best, and this is one of them. I got it crystal synced at 25 frames a second, so we could do the straight transfer onto PAL video. I got a service as a Beaulieu service agent in Australia, which was good. The camera I bought off eBay is the first thing I'd ever bought off eBay, and it turned out to be a bit of a hell story. I've mainly had good experiences on eBay, but this one was a bad one. It came from a bloke in Germany, and I sent the money over, and I didn't get the camera for like 4 or 5 months or something, and it turned out he'd put the wrong address on it, and then after he'd gone on holidays just after he posted it, so I couldn't get in touch with him for ages, and I was starting to think I'd been ripped off, and the day I was actually going to call the federal police is the day it turned up, so that was good. And it didn't come with all the accessories as meant to, but anyway, I got it and it was a good camera. So by the end of 2000, I'd finished the second draft of the script, and I was now looking for the casting. The way I approached that was, I hadn't lived in Brisbane for a while. I'd been away for a fair while, and so a few of the actors which I knew, there's still some around, but I didn't have like an immediate network of people I could suddenly, rely on. So the few people which I did know, I got back in touch with, and some of them were interested to be involved. There's a place called QPix here in Brisbane, which is a screen resource centre for an entry point, I guess, for filmmakers into the industry. And they keep a record of cast and crew people who want to work on productions. So I followed that up, same with the crew there. It was a matter of just sending out scripts, and I didn't have a car either, so I had to ride my bike everywhere, and sending out scripts, getting feedback, waiting a couple of weeks till people made up their mind, and because I was trying to chart out a rough production time frame as well at this stage. Late in the piece, I suddenly realised that a great way to get people involved is, once you've got certain people, ask them to recommend others, because that way, if someone trusts you, then they won't mind getting other people involved, because I think it's a good thing, and their friends will obviously want to be involved if a friend of theirs is, and if they trust their friend's judgment and so on. So it really was just a case of running around and just phoning people and just doing all the legwork, which took ages. The Papua New Guinean people, I went to the consulate here and met the actual consulate general, and he sent out a letter he does like circular letters every month or whatever to a lot of people in the community here. He sent one out. Most of the people are actually from Griffith University here, studying law and accounting and so on. A lot of them are just down from New Guinea, some Brisbane or Australian residents. So a lot of the people are actually university students, and Justin Arley was a great help there. He was very enthusiastic and got a lot of people involved. I think it's fair to say, without Justin's help in getting a lot of that the traditional part of it together, I guess the film wouldn't have been what it is. The part of John Arntu was always going to be a hard one to cast, and I was lucky. There's a lady called Rose Flood who works for Warner, kind of, I guess, does casting consultancy work for Warner Brothers here down on the Gold Coast, and her brother is an actor, and this is Joseph, and so it was via Rose getting this letter that Joseph got in touch with me. And if we didn't get Joseph to play John Arntu, there was no one else, and if we didn't get him at, when we did, the thing wouldn't have gone ahead. I just sort of decided, within the critical time frame in which people were available and which we had to do it, it just couldn't happen. Okay, so we started shooting in March of 2001, and I'd never, used this camera before, getting it over eBay, and the history of how I got it, I thought, is it dodgy still? So we decided to shoot the very first scene as a test as well of the camera. So we shot that, and then I FedExed the stuff over to Switzerland. It was just 4 rolls. I think actually we stuffed up because probably should have used about 6 rolls, I think. Occasionally you get these, they appear to be a never-ending roll, and it doesn't actually show in the viewfinder that the roll's finished, and I think we're still working out about timing these things and so on. So there's some footage which we thought we filmed, but we hadn't, because we thought the roll was still running, but it wasn't. So there's still film running through. So in the long run we had to reshoot this scene, but it was essentially at this stage a test of the camera. If it worked out fine, we'd go ahead. If it didn't, we'd have to work out what our next approach was. So anyway, we had, I think, a 2-week break after we got this film back. But when we got it back, we ran it through my little viewfinder, and it all appeared fine. So we thought, excellent, we'll just keep on going. Little did we know then that one of those rolls had the cursed jitter problem, which a lot of Super 8 had at the time. There was a manufacturing problem with some of the cartridges that Kodak had outsourced to someone new in Germany or France or something, and the quality control wasn't right. And anyway, the upshot was it caused the film to jump in the frame, or as it passed through the gate or something, so that the frames were jumping around. On the little viewfinder we couldn't see this, but when we got it telecined later, in which everything's rock solid, it wasn't, it was moving. And this was a big problem, I think. we shot about 230 rolls all up, and I probably got 40 to 50 rolls that had this. Some were shots that we didn't need and we could work around. Some of them I could correct okay with computer software, some I couldn't. That accounts for some of the movement that you see in some parts of the film there. Some of it you could only correct, to a certain degree with computer software. So some scenes, unfortunately, were so important I couldn't, 2 years later or whatever, when I was editing it, I couldn't go back and reshoot them. So we just had to accept it as it was, and there were scenes that we couldn't get rid of for other reasons. They were too important, so hence they're in there. So that was the first weekend shooting. Now, like most films, the shooting schedule was all over the place. After we did that weekend, that Saturday morning, we were mainly working on the weekends. We did a few shots midweek just to help where people were available. It allowed us to double up, but most people were only available on the weekends, so we just had to time it out, and I think we shot over about 3 months of weekends. This was March 2001. The following weekend we were shooting scenes inside my house and the scene on the river. This is the Brisbane River, where I meet Brad, who played Stu. Then the scene in the park where I meet Colin, and we discuss me travelling up to the Highlands. And then we went out to the Upper Brookfield Hall, and we just spent probably about 3 weekends in a row there. I think people were going a bit stir crazy. We were shooting all the courtroom stuff, the little vestry scene, which was a little storage paint room or something, I think, behind the main stage in this hall. So we spent ages out there, and then we went up to the farm up in the Border Ranges, and we camped over there for a weekend, which was great fun, and then had a hell of a trip getting up there. We were going to take a generator, and then we couldn't fit it in the car, and the place we were getting the generator from was down the end of this shocking ring road setup, which we couldn't get out of, and we finally got on the freeway and travelled back down. And it's about 9 p.m. at night by the time we got here, travelling over to this farm, travelling over dirt roads and all the rest of it. And so we pitched our tents in the dark and set up, and woke up to this wonderful, wonderful location and backdrop, and so we did everything that we could do there. And then I think everyone was just really burnt out, so we had a break for the following weekend after that. And then we started shooting on the Tristan Curry, his balcony. He was the first assistant director, where we needed a location to be part of the patrol office, but I suppose a balcony, it could have been inside a building, but a balcony was probably better, gave it more of the outdoor feel. And so this building, which happened to be very close to the middle of Brisbane, and you can actually, if we rearrange things, you can see the skyscrapers behind us. Anyway, we shot in there. Then we went back out to the hall to do a few more pickup shots. We also shot at the Three Monkeys restaurant here in Brisbane. They were very good to us. We had all of our preliminary meetings there, and then we were able to shoot there one Sunday morning for free. And then the first time we went up to the farm up in at the Border Ranges there, we had a couple of problems. One was Joseph got sick, so unfortunately we couldn't do his scenes, but it was quite serious, so it's far more important that he was looked after than we worried about trying to get his stuff done. So he couldn't come up at all, and also it rained a little bit on the second morning, so that kind of stifled what we could do. So we did one trip up there doing a few of the exterior shots which we didn't do, and also we excuse me, we had to do all of the stuff inside the hut, John Anderson's hut, which was actually shot in the DOP's garage, David Rosenau's garage. I suppose that's another slight inaccuracy. Inside the huts, they actually used slatted timber for most of the huts, whereas we just wove that sugarcane leaves actually. But that really in the film, John Art is fairly westernised, so he could have had like a seagrass matting or maybe a cane matting or something, so I guess it was okay. And then we went back up to National Arch for Joseph's last scenes, and that was the last day of principal photography, and we raced back to my place at night and shot another scene in the backyard. We had the campfire, which was deleted from the film in the end, but that was all of the main photography. Yeah, we thought that, well, that's, the end of the main photography kind of period, so we celebrated. There was a cake, which was supposed to end up in my face, but it was my crew's way of thanking me for all the hard work I put them through. But I saw it coming, so I fended it off. But I thought I'd better be a good sport and just let him do it anyway. So that was our celebration cake, I guess you could say. Yeah. Then it was really just a matter of me taking stock and starting to edit and look at what we had. We had to reshoot that first scene, so we went back and did that, and honestly that scene I just think must have been cursed, because I don't know, it was such a simple scene, but even the second time we did it we still had problems. We didn't get the automatic gain turned off on the mini disc, so I ended up having to voice over a fair bit of it, and I don't know, there's one shot in the opening there where the sun goes out, and how the hell, I don't know, we didn't reshoot that with the sun dipping out, but we didn't. And I don't know, just the movements of the people in the space we were working in, I don't know, maybe made it a bit more complicated than it should have been. But anyway, so we got that done again. And then some of the other pickup shots, I went on holidays with my family up to see my parents in Townsville in North Queensland, so took the camera up and got some shots up there of some of the beaches. Unfortunately, Townsville's in the dry tropics, not in the wet tropics, so it's in a bit of a rain depression or rain sheltered area, so they don't have heaps of palm trees all over the place. But anyway, we got some good kind of tropical footage, I guess. The boat scene we were going to shoot, well, it ended up deleted from the film, but the interior is actually a cabin inside the Diamantina, which is an old warship that from the Australian Navy, which is now on display in the Queensland Maritime Museum, and they let us film in there for a small donation. I found out one thing, as soon as I told them we were shooting on Super 8, we got a lot of sympathy from a lot of people. I found out they thought, it doesn't exist anymore, it's just like museum stuff or something. So we were able to use that to our advantage where we needed to. We say, it's just on Super 8, and a lot of people would cut us a lot of slack and give us discounts, and wouldn't charge us for filming or charge us very, very little for filming. And then on the other hand, you can really talk it up when you want to get as much out of it as you can. You can say, it's on. I know it's like particularly for cast and crew. You can say, well, even though it's Super 8, if you do it very well, you'll get a very good result. It'll look like 16mm on a TV screen, and it's very good to work on film and so on. And so you can kind of take it both ways. It's very good. I suppose mini DV would probably be the same as well, I guess. But anyway, so we shot on the Diamantina. That scene, I decided it just dragged and it wasn't necessary, so we pulled that. The exterior establishing shot that we had came from a friend of mine who lives over the road, Michael Howcroft. He has a boat, so I went out with him one day and we did a bit of fishing and also filmed all these yachts that were going past, which weren't that many actually. It wasn't a good day, but and we didn't get permission off the people who owned the yachts either. I guess I could have tracked down the registration number or something, but I decided not to put it in the film anyway, so it doesn't matter. And Michael is also responsible for his father, Neville. Michael grew up in New Guinea, and his father took a lot of really, really nice Super 8 footage, which they gave me access to, just so I could choose, what I wanted to use. And the shots of the model plane coming in, intercut with shots that Neville took from a light plane in the 70s coming into land. And the shot of the lady on the beach clapping her hands as the waves come in as well. That's one of Neville's. He took a lot of really, really nice stuff, but just because of the things to do with the storyline and so on, most of it we couldn't use, and most of it's either family footage or footage of plants because he's in the forestry department. So there was some stuff which added heaps, like the plane coming in. The shot of the lady clapping her hands on the beach, we graded that to try and make it look like sunset so it would fit in with the other shots there. So again, I was very lucky. Another thing you kind of find out when you talk to a lot of people about your project, I guess, and particularly everyone seems to have some relationship with New Guinea here, so we were lucky that we managed to get that footage. I did look into getting stock footage, but of the shot where my character first arrives in the Highlands. I wanted to have a really big montage showing a lot of people, native people doing their things, but it would have worked out just way too expensive. And even though I think they were going to give me a bit of a discount, it would have cost around about $1,000 or more, I think, and just at that stage I just couldn't afford it. So I think the footage that we got though is quite good for that montage where I arrive up there. With the aeroplane special effects shot, I was very lucky with that. Originally, we had planned on compositing one in. First of all, the idea was mooted that we might do it digitally, and then we thought, no, we'll build a model and composite it in. Or even actually find a plane. I did a bit of research and I found out that there was, that's the Junkers, but they also used DC-3s up there, I think, and there was one not far from here which was stationary, which I thought we could film and put that in. And Andrew Jackson was going to do that at that stage. He's a digital effects artist. But he got tied up with other work and it wasn't really possible, and he's also pretty heavily into athletics. Became a world champion too, so his time got kind of taken away from him. And I was just discussing this on the internet, on the shooting 8mm side, I think, on the forum, about this, and Roger Evans from America, we just started exchanging ideas about it, and one thing he pointed out was that, which kind of shot our compositing idea in the foot anyway, is that Super 8, it breathes a bit, even without the jitter. The image moves a bit because I think the film's only registered by one pin instead of two or something. I don't know much about it, but and then Roger started saying he'd be interested in doing it, and on his website he had examples of other models which he'd done, and so we started getting very excited about this. But what he suggested we do is a foreground miniature where you have a miniature right up close, and then in the background you have the people who are meant to be reacting with it. So just by tricking the perspective, it looks like the actual object is down near the people. You need a lot of depth of field, so both will be in focus, and the way these people react will make it look like they're down there with it. But that would require reshooting the whole scene, and Roger said he'd be quite happy to do that. And really, they're just body doubles. We don't see the detail of anyone there. So I sent him over some stills and we started talking about this, and he ended up doing it all for free, and he was very, very generous to do it. And as he said, it adds a lot of production value to the film, just seeing something that looks like we got an actual plane there. And at the premiere, no one could believe it was actually a model, and then when I told them how we did it, they still couldn't believe it. So I was very lucky to have Roger just volunteer to do that, and it worked out perfectly. And so we just used the audio, which we actually recorded on the location when we shot our first bits, which we didn't end up using. It was great. And the audio of the plane, I went to an air show, and there was an old Grumman World War II fighter flying over, so I took my microphone and recorded it. And the point is that these planes have the old radial piston engines, which make quite a unique sound, and these Junkers had 3 of them, so I just put the one recording and put it over itself 3 times, slightly out of phase, so it would sound like 3 different engines. And we came up with a very realistic result, so it was very good. The post-production period took a long time. It probably took about 1.5 years, I think, or 2 years maybe. We finished filming, I guess, at the end of 2001. We had another baby, our son, in May 2002. So things were chugging along okay until Alex arrived, and then that slowed everything down again, but that's alright because it's better, But the post-production just took a long period. It was a bit of a learning curve for me too, learning about editing on computers. And then, we had so many unnecessary technical things to deal with. A couple of times we had the sync unit on the camera had got unplugged, which we never realised. And it wasn't unplugged, it remained. What happened? The leads, if you keep the leads into the unit, it flattens the battery. Why the hell it's not designed with an off switch, I don't know. But anyway, so the big speeches in the courtroom, mine and Graham's, and a really long scene between myself and Paul Sherman, who played Dr. Evans. Probably some of the most talky bits in the whole film. The sync was out and we never knew it, so I had to work out ways to try and fix that. I found the easiest way is just to on the timeline where you've got the sound file, you just cut it and shift it along, and it'll stay in sync for about one sentence, except for bits where people talk rapidly and loudly, or rapidly, which I do in the courtroom scene, and it goes out a bit there. But I was trying to stretch and shrink and move stuff, and it just didn't work. And just moving it itself without stretching or shrinking anything is the best solution. So that took a long time to get to, and then working out this jitter problem was another big pain in the butt. And I've tried a number of different programs with varying results, and I found the best one was the D-Shaker plugin for Virtual Dub. So yeah, it took a long time to get everything together. The final premiere was probably only about a month ago from now, which was I think it was the 24th of September. I think it's on this thing up here. Can't read it without my glasses. Yeah, so the final premiere went pretty well. It was on a fairly big screen. I guess it was probably about 20 feet wide by about 18 feet high or something. It was at the screening room at QPix. We did a colour grade. David did a final grade. We found must be something with the camera that I think there's a lot of the scenes were a bit bluish. I think there's a problem with the rat and filter staying in place when it shouldn't, or overdoing the job or something. I don't know, but a lot of scenes were too blue, so David went back and fixed them. And I got the music as well, which is fantastic. Tony Jones had done a great job on that. So finally putting everything together was fantastic. Got a few little suggestions after the premiere, so I made a few other tweaks, which are now what's on the final DVD. And that's where it stands at the moment. So that's it, I guess. It's been a wonderful learning experience. It's been very, very, very hard work, but it's been worth it. So that's it. So thank you.